I just want to show you how the idea is, I don't want to say the wrong word, but how unsuccessful or how unhopeful that route is anymore, man. Like, I'm not saying that it doesn't serve a purpose, but I think sometimes, I know that sometimes people literally like over promote it to you. Like people be over promoting that vibe. And I want to just like get through all the noise. So tonight I mean, I want to talk about your career, right? Like how exposure will not change your career, right? You know what I mean? Open mic performances can help you with getting your craft together, staying in the loop. You feel me? But this page is about this channel is for creatives who want to live their life, making money from the thing that they do, and they want to have a deep, super deep impact on the communities that they from, and make a change in the world. Right? This is for people who have a vision and want to do something super important. So it's like, your career is important. Like that's how you're gonna stay alive in this world. This is how the world gonna value you. That's how you're gonna pay your bills. That's how you're gonna take care of your family. So these are the kind of conversations that we be wanting to have here. Not, no surface level stuff, not nothing that you can hear anywhere else, but like using people's real experiences and then using those real experiences to be able to carve out like what things can look like for you too. So consistency is gonna be the word of the day. That beats being perfect. You know what I mean? Showing up consistently. That's one thing that I've done. I know a lot of people who are better singers than me, better rappers than me, better graphic designers than me. You feel me? Better event coordinators, but they only do stuff once a year. They only do stuff once a quarter. Versus I'm gonna show up every day, right? It's like, that 7-Eleven feeling, that grocery store feeling where it's like every day you need something, you can pull up and get it from me. Even if it's not your favorite thing, we got it. And you know what I mean? Your favorite thing might not show up very often. And that's the thing that I like to talk to artists about. It's like, yeah, they like you, but you never around. If you was around more, then people could actually like, purchase from you and get with you. So at the end of the day, it's like consistency gonna beat all of the perfect design methods and all of that. Shouts out to whoever's in the building. We live on YouTube too, cause I had this topic, do very well on Instagram and TikTok. So I was like, you know what? All right, these be the ones that I'm gonna do the deeper dives on, like the deeper videos or whatever. You feel me? So this is specifically just about open mics and how exposure isn't gonna save your career. You know what I mean? We just gonna dive deeper because I can see a lot of people resonated with that message, and I got a great deal of wealth. You know what I mean? So let me tell you about that, right? You know what I'm saying? Let me talk to you about like my own story and the things that did not work, right? So that we can paint a picture, right? So when I first came in, one of my friends had a bachelor's degree in music, which means he's spent nearly $100,000 on getting crafted. You know what I mean? Learning his craft. You feel me? Shouts out. We done hit 10 people in the chat. That's a good joint. We 10 people in the live. You know what I mean? Make sure y'all like and subscribe so that this thing keep moving. You feel me? Make sure y'all keep liking and subscribing so that this thing keep moving. So my guy, he had his bachelor's degree, and I would see him share stages with a lot of amateurs or even a lot of people who didn't have a deep reverence or enthusiasm around music. Oftentimes he was just showing up. A lot of times he was paying to play. Like he was, what's good, Stevie? I mean, what's happening? I appreciate the comment. Matter of fact, speaking of comments, I need to drop a comment. I need to drop a comment for real, for real. Let me see. How do y'all can help me? How do we drop comments in here? That's a good start. You feel me? Or I'll pin it in the comments after I post the video. How about that? So yeah, like I used to be in these spaces and I'd be like, how is the people who went to school for 8 years? Oh, chat. I'm in chat though. Chat filter, top messages, all messages. Welcome to live chat. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's letting me drop nothing in the chat. So I probably might have to be on a desktop or something because I'm on my mobile. You know what I'm saying? And then when I press the plus button, it asks, do I want to start a Q&A or if I want to start a poll? So I don't want to do either of those. So yeah, in the future, good luck, Stevie. I appreciate that because I just thought it wasn't an option, but it seems like it is an option. I wanted to pin something here, but neither here or there. So yeah, like I used to be wondering, I used to be like, dang, all these people occupy the same space, which in one hand that was good for me because I just got here. You feel me? I just got here. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in the room with the same people who've been doing this for 10 years, people who went to school about it, people who just getting started. So that's one thing I always liked about the open mic vibes that he would take me to because I'm like, oh, everybody here. You know what I'm saying? And you can get in where you fit in. But for him, I used to see like how painful it would be and how long it would take for, you know what I mean, the quality of his experience to be recognized for what it's worth, right? Simply that, because I mean, I could bring you a handful of rocks or I can hand you a handful of gold pebbles. And if you just going to use them to throw stuff at people, then yeah, they worth the same thing. Like they just a projectile at that point. But it's like you can't make homeware and home goods. You feel me? You can't alchemize or electrify things with rocks, right? Like gold has properties that you can refine and use for more valuable processes and experiences. You can't do that with rocks. Now, I'm not saying rocks don't have versatility, but it's not gold. So, like, we wanted to ensure that the value that he's bringing and like what worth that he had will actually be appraised and recognized so that you know what I mean he can continue to like elevate and grow and not like have to maintain where he is and consistently just like showing up in that version of himself because there's nothing replenishing or uplifting or empowering him. So I used to just witness that a lot. I used to be like, dang, like it's like every man for himself in here. So that was my initial thing that I wanted to work with is like, all right, yeah, like you killed it, bro, but no one was people were talking while you was performing and like we ain't get no videos. So it's like it was like you were never there in terms of like what the modern day observation of what somebody does if they're doing something is like, why didn't you capture it on video, one, or pictures, two? And then also, like I mentioned, wasn't nobody really listening. It wasn't engaged. You know, even when you was asking people to like tap in with you, you know what I'm saying? It was like less than 10% of the room. So if there's 100 people in the room and 10 people not getting with you, it's just like, it's a bad joint. And he paid to do that, right? He paid to like vend it. He paid to perform it. So I just was like, nah, like if this were to keep going in this direction, right? It's like you putting in 10 and getting back two and putting in 10 and getting back two and putting in two. So eventually you're going to be super negative. You're going to be negative 24, 25 to 30 points. Like, and you're going to always have to keep compensating the loss, right? Like you're going to have to be the one who has to keep compensating like, oh, okay, we down 21. Now I got to go in my pocket and put 21 back into it to ensure that we can just consistently show up as we are. We ain't even growing. We ain't uplifting. We ain't evolving. We just simply trying to like maintain what it is, and that can be very depleting after a while. You know, being in the scene, I never heard the word burnout. You know, I mean, I played professional sports, I've watched professional wrestling, I've listened to people with 40-year careers, but until I got into the artist scene, I never heard of the phrase burnout. Like I never even knew what that meant. But it's because, you know, like when you independent, when you an entrepreneur, when you an artist, it's like you gotta kind of like create everything. You gotta put the money up. You gotta build the team and all of that. And like, there's no check coming. There's no grant coming. There's no community coming. Like even when you in the church, you know, people will at least lend you some network. If they're not gonna lend you some money or some actual resources, they'll lend you some network. You feel me? Like that, at least that way you can get the ball rolling. But when you want to be in a creative space, you usually have to pay to just have access to networks. So like, you know, we want to be very mindful of like not burning ourselves out because that's not going to lead to you having a career and a long-term consistent like experience as a creative or an entrepreneur. So that's why I wanted to like really lock in on this idea of like open mics and like how we can use them to like create more elevation and not let people just like lull us to sleep or persuade us. That's the word I was looking for. Is like persuade us with exposure, because you know what I mean. Exposure, you can you can have negative exposure. A lot of people could see you in a negative light, and that could dissuade them from wanting to rock with you the way that they would have if you would have been more intentional about the platforms or the placements or the profiles that you are aligned with. So it's like if I'd have saw you in the right light, I would have bought from you the second time I saw you in the right light, but now I saw you in the wrong light. you're gonna need 3 experiences just to get that one out of my head. So now you need 6 just to get me back to where I was. And it's just mathematically it's a bad joke. Like I'm gonna always use math, y'all. Like if y'all not into math, let me know in the comments. I'll find another way. But like I'm a math person. Like if it's not mathing, the math not mathing, I don't even really want to get too much into it. We just call it a hobby at that point. Like let's just call it a hobby. If we gonna continue to pour into it without it being like reciprocal, let's just call it a hobby. You feel me? Like yeah. No, I know. Yo, it's crazy because I just realized they definitely did have this hairstyle. I never associated them with this, but like, you are right. I never even peeped. Like, I'm in Philly. I'm in Philly right now. Shouts out to James Chambers. You feel me? We in Philly with it, man. We in Philly. So the next thing I want to talk about is the evolution framework, right? Because we talked about what it ain't. So I want to spend more time on what it is. Like I don't really want to spend too much time on what it ain't. So I have this framework, if you will, right, to evolve. It's like rehearse, record, release, reflect. Rehearse, record, release, reflect. Rehearse, record, you know what I mean? Release, reflect. Rehearse, record, release. Okay, so hey, East Tennessee. Yo, Tennessee be lit on the low. Most people think like all these commercialized or metropolitan cities are the cities for music, like New York or ATL or LA. Nashville is actually the city of music. You know what I'm saying? Hall of Fame, all of that rock and roll. Like, there's more, like syndication and like culture invested into music than all of those city places. Like, all them city places is literally just like trying to exploit your brand so that they can make some money by making a commercial for their products by using your audience, right? There's no real care about the music. They don't care about the music. They try to make some bread with you, which is cool too. But like, there are cities that are more culturally or like, where they, yeah, culturally, for lack of a better word, or you know what I mean, their values are rooted in like music or just other different mediums of expression, like culinary or like you know illustrational art and stuff. So shouts out to Tennessee, man, because like shouts out to the Delaware, shouts out to the New Orleanses, you feel me? Shouts out to the what's that place called? The Portlands. You know what I'm saying? The places people just never associate with music, but it's like they're literally the meccas of music. You feel me? Like, so yeah, rehearse. That's the first part of the framework that I want to talk about. Yeah, Nashville, bro. Nashville type ish. You feel me? Nashville. Um, so yeah, like the rehearsal part is sure that's pretty simple, right? Like you got to get the set right. I mean, a lot of times, I've heard this sentiment that like the open mics be the place to rehearse. Don't listen to them people, bro. Like you can feel safe enough or confident enough to like you can feel confident enough to not be perfect in them settings. Like you don't obviously have to do anything perfectly. That's why we're talking about this, is just consistency is always going to be a more valuable quality. But like y'all gotta stop coming to these open mics not knowing your own stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. Like I said earlier, like this sometimes be the first impression y'all be having on people. So it wouldn't service you really well, like if you don't know your stuff. So let's take a step back. I feel like that was the part that made the post do really well, was me saying that. So like we don't want to go that far yet. Let's take a step back, right? Let's start with a teachable moment, because you know what I mean, before we can even implement this stuff, we're gonna have to figure out why we implementing this stuff. So let's talk about the craft first, right? Let's talk about you just rehearsing off camera, outside of the stage, any of that stuff, like what I mentioned briefly there. Your craft. A lot of people don't talk about the craft, right? Like a lot of people talk about like the platform or the associations or like the monetization, like all the after stuff. And even in this generation too, this the new wave, people have this sentiment that like you don't have to have any talent to be successful, that the predominant people who are successful lack craft or talent. And I think we just don't be understanding what the actual medium is for, transaction. Like, I don't think people be understanding why things are chosen. Like, yeah, 30, 40 years ago, people used talent to promote products and services. Like, that's what was attractive to people was, oh, this person's talented. What are the elements that encompass this person? What things do they do? What people do they be around? What products, are they purchasing? Like, that's where talent was like prescribing people's interests. It's like why Nike used Jordan. They could have used any basketball player. They could have been like, all right, yeah, we want to get basketball shoe sales. But they chose the best person so that when you peeped it, you wanted to fly like Air Jordan. You feel me? So yeah, skill used to be the thing that it'd be like, oh, okay, I want to buy this because I want to be associated with the brand that highlights the highest qualities of things. But things are different now. So when people be saying that sentiment around like, oh, no one's got skills anymore, that people lack skill, like no, they might not have habitual talent, right? They might not have like lyrics and like a good voice or dance moves and stuff, but what they do have a skill at doing is being commercial. You know what I'm saying? Being able to get people enthusiastic about trends. You know what I mean? People are really good at creating popularity around a subject. You know what I'm saying? There's a skill of like being able to show up what some of us would call fake, but other people would call professional, right? Where you come to work and it's just work, right? So a lot of these new artists know how to show up simply because this is their job, this is their profession. Like a lot of artists that I love and are endeared to, their lives were brought to the studio every day, right? Their lives were brought to the stage. So some of my favorite artists are straight gangster rappers. So they bring in people with felonies, they bring in people with unregistered firearms, they bring in people with drugs on stage. You know what I'm saying? And those were some of the most memorable moments and influential moments in my life. But think about how much liability comes from being with real gangsters. You feel me? Versus you be with somebody like Takashi or Gunna or somebody who's just, they just look like a gangster. They're just like promoting it. There's so little liability to that. Like there's less liability. Obviously, those two gentlemen got in trouble for acting like it. So that's why I'm using that example. But there's dozens of people who never get in trouble for acting like it. You feel me? So it's like we don't want to have a Takashi Gunna situation where you actually get in trouble for something you don't do. You feel me? But a lot of people have perfected the ability of like using street terms or using, like the decor or like the mannerisms, like just bringing the culture to the music and leaving the actual authenticity or like the reality of it to the side. You know what I'm saying? Even like with, I guess what y'all would say is social media or like influencers. A lot of times people don't recognize how much trust, right? Trust is a skill. You know what I mean? That's part of people's craft, right? They're crafting somebody who can show up 4 to 8 hours a day with you online. I think it's just somebody that, that's how academics won. Academics was showing up, delivering the news more frequently than CNN was. He was showing up more and he was showing up more for his people, right? So meanwhile, while people were losing this, they were losing interest and trust in CNN or Fox during COVID, right? He is, and him, along with a lot of other people with platforms, were gathering those audiences that were fracturing during the pandemic. So that's just something I want to mention about craft, man, because a lot of times we get so hyper focused on the things that we value or that we're interested in people, and we would like a music soul child, or we like a Missy Elliott, or like a Ludacris, or like Jasmine Sullivan, or like these extremely talented people where their craftsmanship is just through the roof. But a lot of times when I've done the homework, so if you intriguing, if this is any interest to you, do some homework. You'll see that some of these people, they might pray differently. Something as simple as praying differently can discourage, producers from working with you. Some of your political values, that's what cancel culture is about. Is if you come and work here, you got to think like us. You got to be like us. Otherwise, we going to fire you. We going to ostracize you. We going to, create a narrative that you are a conflict around the interests of everyone else. So it's like, I just think that that's something to consider. But this isn't a conversation simply about craftsmanship, right? You know what I mean? So we're gonna move on to the next thing. But simply said, like, your craft can show up in whatever way that you're deliberately and habitually showing up with value, man. Like, that's just really what it is. Like, where are you practicing? Where are you putting in time to get better at? And how is the way that you know you getting better is because of the results that you bring people from the action behind your craft, your work. So next, that brings me to the next thing, which is content. I kind of like mentioned it a few times. Like, content is essential all the time, right? But I think a lot of times, once again, modern day stuff can kind of conflate, which just means make things confusing. It can conflate like what things really mean, right? There's the meaning we place on them in the modern day, but then there's like, no, like, what do they really mean, and how did the modern day definition even derive itself to come to its present meaning, right? So content has always been the innards, the inside, the inside, for lack of a better word, the inside of a particular topic or subject or a form of matter, right? So content can be like water in a cup. Content can be words in a book. Content can be ideas in a mind, right? All of these things are content. What are the contents of a thing? So oftentimes, like, this is how people see your skill, right? When you're demonstrating and showing up in content, you're showing up what you're good at. Like right now, I'm clearly demonstrating that I know a bit about, what do they call that? Pop culture, marketing, social media, and etc. So it's like, if you are a seamstress, you make content about sewing stuff. If you're a cook, you make food about cooking stuff. You know what I mean? But it's like, I mean, you make content about cooking stuff, but like, content can be written, it can be audio, it can be visual, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, I think oftentimes people, and I was never guilty of it myself, but I definitely carried the shame of not being able to show up to the industry's standard. And a lot of creators don't show up at all because they can't show up at the industry standard. But if you didn't know, I'll be the first to tell you, like, the industry standard typically revolves, it requires a lot of money. You got 10 to 100 people you're paying salaries to show up, right? A lot of those people don't necessarily want to do the work unless they're getting paid. A lot of these people who be at production studios or large conglomerate media platforms, those are simply just jobs to these people. And that was what I was mentioning as far as the industry and the crafts, I guess, section, the chapter of this conversation is like, people. This is an industry to people. People go home and like carving wood and feeding ducks and shooting deer. Like, they don't even be worrying about what they be showing up to commit to distributing to large masses of people. So it's like, when it comes to content, in terms of like, when people are trying to show up in these industrial spaces, right? They looking for the thing that's going to be the most viral, the most monetarily successful. I'll take a little tangent here and say that's why AI is super important to the creative industry, because if they can find a way to create stuff that people are willing to consume and don't gotta pay people, that's a perfect formula for them. So a lot of times, that industry standard that people want to keep up with, or that they are ashamed of showing up in their current state because it does not, it don't look like the industry standard. There's not, multiple cameras. There's no color grading. There's no budget for marketing, right? So people immediately step into their first day of being a creative or an entrepreneur, holding themselves accountable to the standard at which the industry shows up at. Which I'll be the advocate. I'll be God's advocate in this effort to say, like, yeah, when you do upload a song, you uploading it right next to Beyonce's song. You know what I'm saying? So there should be some consideration and some weight that you place on how you showing up. Like, you should show up as the best version of yourself, but then you can also, there is no, you don't have to go through the mainstream no more. Like, everybody keeps trying to go through a publisher or like a platform or a distributor, because that's the old way of doing it. Once again, that's the way I grew up in it. I grew up, you got to go to New York with your mixtape and pray somebody comes out the building and listens to it. Like that, I grew up in that era, but it's not that era no more. You got to, like, see content differently. Like, that's your ability to run an advertisement. The same ad you used to see as a kid growing up for car insurance, they ran the same ad, right? And they ran the same ad for 6 months. So if State Farm can make themselves $1 billion company by using the same piece of content for 6 months in a row, you should probably just think of it a little like let yourself breathe, bro. Like you know what I'm saying, I don't really don't want to stay here too long. Like let yourself breathe, man. You trying to make 30 pieces of content a day. Like what did they got y'all doing now? A piece of content every day of the week, and multiple pieces of content every day of the week, and they all got to be different, and they all got to be good, and they all got to be original. And it's like you can look at the landscape and see that a lot of pages get paid from reposting a lot of other people content. It's not that insatiable, and insatiable just means requiring so much of things that are not good for you. So we're gonna move on to the last point, which is just consistency, which I touched on very briefly here as well. Is like a lot of times just using the same piece of content could do you better than not showing up at all. This is what I'm saying. A lot of people got enough reasons of why they're not showing up at all when you could just show up and get better. I mean, like, I got a piece of content that I got right now, right? It started at 300 views. It was a 2-minute piece of content. I thought it was pretty good, but for me to have nearly, I think on that particular profile, I have almost like 10,000 followers. So, like, for me to only get 300 views isn't bad. 300 people seeing you in a day is terrific. I was in the house. So, for someone to see me 300 times and I was in the crib, give thanks and praise. But as far as converting what it is that we've already gotten together here, as far as consistency, right? I've consistently built up to the following that I have. So for that to be a meaningful piece of content to those people or people, adjacent or next to them, we would like to see at least 10% of the amount of people following us engaged. So that would have been 1,000 people. So just to sum this up, it's like I took that piece of content that was 3 minutes and I looked at the analytics and I said, all right, well, where did everybody fall off at? Where did the video get? It's like no engagement. So I saw that after 1 minute of the video, 0% of people were watching it anymore. I think after like a minute of the video, no one was left. So I said, all right, well, we could at least repost this and take out the part nobody watched. And as I rewatched the video, one thing I recognized was, oh, there was a very distinct mental cutoff, right? I had made a very distinct point at 1 minute, and then I went into elaborating on that point where clearly people weren't interested in me elaborating on that point. The way that I made the point was meaningful or significant enough. That's why they left. So I reposted it the second time, and then I saw the post. It got a little bit better engagement, but then we were able to see that the majority of that fall off again was at 13 seconds. So it went from 2 minutes to 1 minute to 13 seconds. And at that 13-second mark, once again, there was a distinct, and I didn't perceive it that way because when I was making the content and just being consistent and showing up as myself, I thought I hadn't made the point clear enough. You feel me? I'm thinking I needed to keep going. And I feel like I still need to keep going, to be honest with you, but that'd be for a longer piece of content. But when I went to that 13-second part of that video, there was also a very distinct, impactful point made. And then the video, like goes on to elaborate on that point, but that's not what people needed. They're like, you made it. It made sense right here. 13 seconds in, this is where it made sense. You're good. And so that's what I mean by consistency. It's like I made 3 pieces of content out of 1 piece of content. Then I also turned it into threads. And then I also made a script for a long form. I went on LinkedIn with it. You see what I'm saying? It's like, you don't got to keep making 85 pieces of content, bro. There's a way that you could use the same piece, break it down some, change the captions, maybe put an overlay on it of something else. Like, you ain't got to go that crazy. So I just wanted to end on that note as far as consistency. And then now we can get back into like the implementation part. I feel like I went a little too far, too fast. You know what I mean? So I wanted to prep you, right? You know what I'm saying? Like first you want to get your craft, figure out what your craft is. Like, all right, this is my craft. This is what I'm locking in on. This is what I'm going to get good at. Not because I like it, but because I'm good at it. I always tell people when they're not a creative or an entrepreneur yet, I'd be like, how long you had a job? They'll be like if you're 30 years old, you probably had a job for anywhere from 10 to 15 years, right? So it's like, if you've had the same job for 7 years doing desk work, or you like the receptionist, that's your craft. Not making body butter. Your craft is being a receptionist and being a host. You are good at engaging with people over long periods of time, documenting that, making sure it efficiently goes into a POS system. You feel me? Like that's your craft. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get good at body butters, or maybe you were doing body butters for 11 years behind the counter. I don't know. But you still spend 8 hours a day at work and 2 hours a day with your butters. So it would still behoove, it would still be in your best interest if you're starting out, see how you could be a host or a receptionist at somebody else's thing, right? And then once you're able to get some leverage, which would just mean simply like people think that you provide value to the spaces that you come to, then you could introduce your ideas and your brand as well. But you would probably, I would highly recommend that you should choose the thing that you've been good at and get good at the thing that you want to get good at first, right? So if you got 7 years of reception work and only 2 years of whipping up butters, you should probably just take the next 5 years whipping up butters and sell, get your sales off. But I wouldn't put so much stress and pressure on that being the front end brand that you position yourself with. You should get yourself in the door with the thing that you're good at, and then allow the thing that you're loving and liking to like catch up essentially. And then one day you'll be 7 years into doing that, and then maybe the reception work will have um, converted its time from being a receptionist into deliberately doing the butters, and then you can let the receptionist thing go. But I mean, that's just it. It's like I said, it's a recommendation. That's not why we here today. I see that a lot where, what I mean, the craft gets left behind, right? So then once we do know our craft, we just want to show up in content. We want to show up in content because that's the most important way to get people to know about what you do. And then we just show up consistently doing that. So that's the preparation: craft, content, and consistency. Now we'll get to the implementation, which, like I mentioned earlier, was rehearsing, recording, releasing, and then reflecting. And I feel like this is like there's a spiritual component to all of this as well. I always have a mentalism and an emotional and spiritual relationship with the things that I just show up and do, in being myself, but also like my crafts or my skills or whatever, right? So, shouts out to, yeah, bro. You in my comments going crazy, bro. You're drawing, but yeah. So rehearse. We could actually slide through these, to be honest, because at the end of this, I was going to take a few questions, but I mean, I don't want to like draw it out or force it out. So if y'all got any questions, feel free to ask them now, and then I'll just get to it at the end. Because otherwise, once I get through this last part, I'm gonna just wrap it up to be keep it a being with you. So rehearse, record, release, and reflect. Right. I think the first one gets. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Like, and I think this is one of the things that's super duper lost art in all of this is like rehearsals. I mean, I don't need to talk about this, but I will I will suggest like showing up on social media is a form of rehearsal. I won't discount that, but being in front of real people, you can't like you can't swap that one out. I mean, showing up on camera like this is challenging enough. Like, so make sure you get this lockdown for sure. Rehearse, do get some lives in. You know what I mean? Perform live. You could perform on your phone to a live audience. Like, get that off. But it's still not going to completely prepare you for, public speaking or public performances. But you'll be way much more prepared than everyone else. Like, if this is one of those, do you want to be in the top 10% conversations? Yeah, well, practice on your phone. Simple as that, right? Like, I've done 1,000 lives. I've done 100 performances. I've been in front of people and communicated publicly on several occasions. And I was doing that back when I was in the streets regardless. You know what I'm saying? I've been speaking publicly for almost 20 years now. Just getting my offer in front of people, taking no's, setting meetings, scheduling myself, having team members. I've been doing that shit since I was a kid. So I would encourage you all that the only way I got this fluent and this confident and comfortable with myself in these mediums is because I just put in the reps. And that's what rehearsal is about. It's just just workouts for musicians. You feel me? So I'm not. That's not really like a strategic thing that I'm gonna dive deeper into. I just want to remind you that one because that's if you're not willing. I mean, the people who are professionals and are more successful than me, right? Any writer who I know is a professional writer who gets paid for writing. They told me that they write 5 times a day, 16 verses. You know what I'm saying? The two people who I know who live in the industry, that work in the industry, they told me as a writer that they write 5 times a day and they try to knock out at minimum 16 verses. So just know that the person who has the job you want, that's how much work they put in. So you gotta at least do more work than that. You know what I'm saying? Or do something more impactful than 5 days a week worth of writing and 16 verses. People who are professional recording artists, I've talked to dozens of them. Typically they spend 3 to 4 days physically in a studio at that point, which they just need to get one at their house. Most artists who I know are professional artists full time at least have a studio at the crib so that they can put in 2 to 4 hours several times a week just on rehearsal. You know what I'm saying? Just check out the new plugins and try some new vocal inflections, bring in a feature or something. Like that's just regular. So that's one sentiment that I'll leave you with on rehearsal. Like the professionals are putting in amounts of time that you probably couldn't even fathom. Like you wouldn't even fathom putting in that much time. You think showing up to perform 2 times a month is exhausting. Meanwhile, they show up and practice their song 2 times a day while running outside. You know what I'm saying? Like they not even so you just rehearsal. Recording, um, once again, I mean, there's a lot of really good content, man. I follow some people who were directors. They were in Hollywood. They were working at firms. They were working at corporations. Like they had access to the largest equipment, the best software, you know what I mean, the highest budgets. And now they're making content. That's who you making content against, right? So I know it can be discouraging. Like, I mean, look at my setup right now. I got regular behind me, right? It's not like I don't got signs. It's still growing, and there's no, floral, and there's no chairs, and I don't look like Huey P. Newton, and I don't got no future feet. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't got all the stuff. Like, but my channel's bigger than a lot of people with the stuff. You know what I'm saying? I be want to always encourage people like, just record it, bro, and you'll learn how to make it look good. I mean, if you can show up consistently and get people to like it where you are, eventually I will get those things. I was just talking about that with my mom the other day. I was like, let me fuck around. Excuse my language. Let me put on a suit, right? Let me pull up with a suit on, right? I'm typically, not typically, I'm knowingly more experienced, more educated, and just let's use those two components. I'm usually more experienced and more educated than most people that I enter rooms with, but typically because they have credentials and present themselves much more intentionally than I do, they have exceptional offers and exceptional deals than myself, right? So I was telling that to my mother the other day. I said, man, I'm making this hard. I should pull up with a suit, get my hair done, pull up with a suit. It's like, dang, is that gonna kill me? But I was younger when I would be so indifferent with that, knowing I already knew that then that a lot of people were performing the parts that they were being casted for, but they were not embodying. They were not the actual person that was the highest qualified for those roles. I knew that then, but it made me frustrated. So a lot of what I would record would be the frustration in that effort of like navigating that. But now I'm like 10 years in the game and I'm like, okay, there's actually like a lot of trust I've built showing up in this capacity of being myself and et cetera, et cetera. It gives me leverage that other people don't, because even though a lot of people look good, don't nobody know who they are as an individual. So, my new, I guess, evolution, since we're talking about, evolution and framework, is like integrating both of those mediums and those intentions so that we can, go further, right? So, and I think that goes into the next R, which is release. Just making sure that it gets out there, putting yourself out there. But like I said, these are also some spiritual euphemisms as well, right? Where it's like, you know, some of this stuff can be heavy to carry. Some of these things are very enjoyable. So it's like you want to be able to share that enjoyment. One thing that a lot of people, I guess, have coined today is rage baiting. Once again, these are things that always commonly get renamed or retitled, but they've always been things that existed. Before they used to call it breaking news. You know what I'm saying? Before they called it rage baiting. But, we live in a lot more of an emotionally sensitive time. So people associate things that make them uncomfortable with di- dissonance, right? They are dissonant from things that make them uncomfortable. When some of those uncomfortable facts or issues that are surrounding the things you do care about or like will be pivotal to them being sustainable, and also for them to be just sustainably enjoyable. You know what I'm saying? Like, what I'm saying? How many restaurants or how many products still exist today, but they're terrible, right? It's generally, in most of the time, just due to the fact that the people involved have lost the values and ethics around keeping and preserving the highest quality experience for those things. You know what I mean? So when I'm saying releasing, it's like, I think a lot of us in these artistic spaces are aware of, releasing and, like, navigating away from things that don't serve us. But sometimes the things also that don't serve us are the very vehicles that allow the people who are disenfranchising your peace and your enjoyment to flourish. So let me say that one more time, right? Yes, it may be a disservice to you, and the fact that it is a disservice to you and why you've released it is the energy that other people are transmuting and committing to in order to make what it is that you're disengaging or dissonant with so impactful and so powerful that it deters your efforts and the impact that you make. So we want to make sure that we clean up around us, right? We don't want to just clean up after ourselves. Because when we get into cleaning up after ourselves and only being responsible for cleaning up after ourselves, we put out an energy and we release a frequency that allows other people who might have dysfunctional or destructive interests around your same values and, love, right? They just running that shit up now. They just running it up. They just running it up. So you can't always, release. I've learned this the hard way. Putting out pieces of content that were extremely viral, and I can tell you, I have 10,000 comments, 10,000 hateful, disparaging comments. Like, those people thrive off of me wanting to dissociate from certain things. They thrive off of it. Since this is a content conversation, right? I had a post about Ibrahim Traore, and my goal was to communicate that America was ghetto because of, like, how it's a challenging experience for Black people, particularly. And when I released that video, it still to this day gets several hundred comments a month just of hateful speech. And one thing that I had to realize was I'm not even accumulating a following or a view from people who want to support me. You know what I'm saying? And that can be super, super counterproductive for what it is that I am intending to get accomplished, which is to organize people who look like me. All I essentially did was organize a bunch of people who don't look like me. And I gave them a destination and an address for how to, attack me, at least digitally. You know what I mean? So some people have a sensatiable appetite for doing the wrong thing so they could actually come find me. So that's just a story to highlight the mention of, like, the spiritual interest, sometimes warfare that goes into just releasing and being a content creator and an artist, because our intentions can be placed very well, but sometimes the impact that we make, what I mean, we got to be a lot more responsible for that. I know I'm working on that as of recently, like, just being more responsible for the impact of my work and not just wanting to retort or repeat my intentions around everything as if that's satisfactory. Once again, it is satisfactory amongst those who are not extremely successful in their careers, right? So just as it roots into the surface level approach of like open mics and stuff like that, it's like we want to use those platforms like open mics to, create a reinforceable, sustainable, amplified experience of ourselves, especially on digital platforms. But just for the sake of the open mic, you don't want nobody to lead an open mic and be not knowing who you are and stuff. So this is how we put ourselves out there is essential. And this last thing I'll touch on today is reflection, which is I don't like journaling, but I do it though because I understand and I've experienced and witnessed the power of like what clarity it can bring me, as well as like sometimes it's just rejuvenating the nostalgia of it. Sometimes I just look through a book or something and it'd be fly. But like reflection in its totality don't just revolve around like journal entries or nothing. That's just something that I've implemented and that I'm suggesting to you. Reflection can simply be like looking at all them old videos. I had trouble doing that before. I would upload stuff and not watch it at all. Like I wouldn't watch it at all. I wouldn't watch it one time. And I remember somebody hit me up one day and they were like, "Yo, did you know that your video is like people are like it was so dysfunctional. Like the beginning part, the audio was messed up. So I mean, even if you turned on the video for 30 seconds, you already turned off. Like, what's happening? Then you watch the video further, and like the camera is like leaning over real slowly, like this, the whole time. So it's like I ain't never watched the video back, and then when I watched it back, I say, I'm tripping. I'm tripping. Why did I throw this up? Right? But it was because at the time, my I was just practicing consistency. This was before I was consistent. I'm like, all right, we just got to make sure something goes up. And boy, when I was reflecting on what went up, I'm like, yo. So reflection can sometimes just be the greatest opportunity for you to just clean up, like I said, after yourself, and then just create an environment that's more, helpful, hygienic, clean for other people's learning and experience of you. Because if I was watching a video, I have to really love you to watch a trash video of you. And I've done it before. I've watched video of 19 Keys or Gary Vee or Chris Doe or people who I trust wholeheartedly. And if the video go a little left, I'm there. You give you 2-3 minutes of technical difficulty, that's fine. Because you've already provided a significant amount of value to me for me to be like, all right, well, sometimes cameras fall down, sometimes mics turn off, right? I can accept that. I'm pretty sure anyone can accept that, but not on the first impression. Not on the first impression. So I'm saying take the opportunity to reflect on how you can show up, reflect on your work, and then even just reflect with, what I mean, a medium like a journal or like, I mean, I don't I think it's kind of weird to record yourself talking, but now here we are. So with that being said, I just want to, ask y'all some questions in the comments. Leave them in the comments like, what are you skipping in this process? Are you still at the craftsman part? Are you at the evolutionary part? You know what I mean? Have you even started yet? You did? Because I made the content about open mics and like it seemed like people shared the sentiment. But I'll be honest with y'all, especially if you do watch this, right? Don't comment my post agreeing, but then still do the thing that you agreeing with me on. That actually is just as meaningless as those racist people on my Ibrahim Touré post. I don't need hollow comments in hollow engagement, right? Like, holla at me when it means something to you. You know what I mean? Save the meaninglessness for the meaningless content. What I'm proclaiming and I'm declaring, even using this video and why I'm even staging my content this way, is because I have to be more intentional about how I'm showing up in the content to ensure that I'm attracting people who are intentional about what they consume. And oftentimes I've done it frivolously, and that's why people show up and engage frivolously. You know what I'm saying? So now we writing scripts, we're iterating content from our create method, from writing prompts. Even before the writing prompts, we have what we call vocal brain dumps, where we elaborate and expound on topics verbally and oratorily, and then we move into the journal prompting. We refine those journal prompts into blogs. We extract those blogs into talking points for long form videos like these. Then we refine these to long form talking videos to short form videos that we can share on social media. We direct that engagement on the social media content to lead magnets that provide value for free, so that we can then nurture those audiences with products and services and experiences in real life that eventually turn them into customers. And that's how we make money. And that's the long tail, bro. It's not like, oh, post content, make money. It's like, nah, man, we really be meeting people. We really know thousands of people. Thousands of people have actually bought our services, been to our events, watched our content. Like, them real people. And so I take a lot of, well, I'm very proud, I should say, that, you know, we can build audiences of 50,000 people that we engage with every day. Okay, maybe on Monday we only hit 2,000 of them. Maybe on Wednesday we hit 13,000 of them. But the fact that you can even effectively communicate with people on that scale, even if they only watch something for 10 seconds, that's profound. So that's all I got. If nothing else, you know what I mean? If you go to the next open mic you go to, if y'all want like a checklist or something, I can make a checklist for y'all. I have something similar to that. It's called the clarity checklist. But you know, if this continues to be something that people like really, really value as far as like me talking about, then I'll make like a checklist for the open mics for y'all or something. But I guess as like a challenge, then if we can get this video to 100 views or 10 likes, I'll drop a checklist for y'all. But until then, I got some tools and stuff already in the description. Check out the Stand Store, and I'll see y'all next time, man.